If you could sign your name, please.
You want to sign in, please?
My name is Cheryl Boyce. I'm a longtime resident of this community. My grandparents were here when it was Penn Township and it was legitimately farms. I wasn't coming tonight until I read the Times Express. I want to know, and you know we've been debating about commercial logging in Pennsylvania now for a couple years, and I find it interesting because my family's been here, my parents were here, I'm here, my kids are here, and this impacts us as a community at large. The Agriculture Communities and Rural Environment Act, have you reached out to our Senator, Senator Brewster, or Representative Markosik? I deal with Harrisburg a lot on educational issues, and just because the state has an act does not mean that it's a quality act and it doesn't need to be revisited. I always go back to legislators and say, guys, we really need to look at this now because things have changed. And I think one of the things we have to look at from this act is we are a suburban residential community, and we are not like it was when my grandparents built their homes in this community. Both my sets of grandparents lived out here. We had ducks, we had geese, we had goats, we have cows. That day is gone. So I think we need to revisit this whole concept. So I know that we had a problem with the State Attorney General's office, but again, I think that act needs to be looked at. I have no problem reaching out to them, though I reach out to them on a regular basis on education issues. So I'm just curious, have you talked to them about revisiting this and looking at the act and determining whether this should be amended in some way?
You're looking at me. We have had some informal discussions with some of the legislators. I think from our point of view, what's happened here is that they passed a law that is obviously statewide.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense out in rural Pennsylvania.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense at all
I
in
understand
communities
that.
like Monroeville.
Right.
And I think that the
Right.
thing that we all need to do is try to bring more awareness to it, get more communities involved, communities like Monroeville, because quite frankly, it's only a matter of time until other communities experience this same thing. And the Attorney General's office is very, very active in enforcing this acre law. They have a department, one section of the Attorney General's office just devoted to this, which is kind of hard to believe, but it is in fact the case.
No, I
So
don't.
we're pushing back pretty hard on this, and they're pushing back just as
Yeah.
hard, but
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not done yet.
Well, because I really think it needs to be addressed, and having dealt with so many legislators and acts, we have a lot of things on the books that are from like 1890. I mean, seriously, you should see the school
No, we
code.
know that.
You know that. So I think it needs to be addressed. The other thing that bothers me about this is taxes. I don't know what you pay to have these kind of properties and these kind of things happen in Monroeville, but given the what's going to happen when you have trucks and everything going through, and I understand they have bonds and whatever, I'm hoping they're going to pay their fair share of taxes on the property, because I don't know what a nonprofit, if you're defined as a nonprofit, and I worked in that field, if you're a nonprofit, you don't pay taxes because that's why you're a nonprofit. But agriculture is a different ball of wax. So I don't know what we are or what we're really dealing with, because I've seen it both ways. But if it's agricultural, I hope that you're looking at the taxes, because that leads me to my next comment, which is sort of related to this. The school district is looking at some properties, 5 of them right now, that haven't been paying their taxes. I hope you're looking at that too, because I don't really like to pay more taxes if there are other people that should be paying more than they are or haven't paid at all. So I'm hoping you're looking at that. But also, when we're talking about logging, commercial logging, because that's what this is, I don't know what the tax liability is for that kind of thing, but I hope you're getting your fair share, because I want to see us get our fair share.
Well, let me just make one comment for you, Cheryl. First off, I think Paul and what Bob said is absolutely appropriate. We have talked, but you have to remember, the rural areas had a very strong lobby, and that's how they got it passed.
Oh, I deal with lobbying.
We're gonna have to, and folks like you and anybody else sitting here in the listening audience, if you feel the same way, I would encourage you to contact Senator Brewster and Representative Markosik. But again, even if they agree, they still have to, Bob hit the nail on the head, we have to have a lot of other communities
Right.
that are not in that rural area, if you will, to join. That's the only way, and I don't know, that's a big hill to climb. Would you not agree, Bob?
Yeah, I think what's unfortunate is I don't think the acre law has impacted enough suburban municipalities yet. And, you know, let's say I can tell you right now, if you pull out the ordinances of Mount Lebanon, Fox Chapel, Upper St. Clair, really anywhere, Penn Hills, all of those ordinances violate acre. And it just hasn't happened that somebody's tried to log in those communities. If it had happened in many communities at one time, obviously, there'd be a big groundswell, and the
Right.
municipal organizations would get together and they'd put more pressure on, and that's the only way it's going to happen.
I understand that. And I
And
know this.
I know you know
Oh,
that
you
for
know
sure.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know about lobbyists. You want me to tell you about lobbyists? I could be here for all night about lobbyists. But I understand that. I just wondered if you had reached out to them, because clearly looking at this has to be amended. And just to say something about the State Attorney General's office, that they would do half the time what they should be doing instead of what they shouldn't be doing. We would be better off in the state, but just to add that too in the mix. I'm going to send this article to the Sierra Club, because they lobby too. And I'm going to just let them, I'm not a really big fan of them, but I know that's their thing, and ask them if they have lobbyists that can go to Harrisburg and address this, specifically to the legislators in places like Allegheny County that can be impacted about this. I don't care what they do in Warren County, out in some dirt road somewhere, but this is a little different. I mean, we're talking 2016, not 1946 when my grandparents moved here. But I'm glad you're on top of this. I will send this out to some folks. I will take this with me and ask them, and we'll see what we can do. It may not fix it this time around, but I think in the long term, we've got to change this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor,
What? Yes, sir.
and Bob, to clarify, made the comment as far as, there are a lot of rules that are in the books that are really, really old. This one, though, in particular, this is not that old of a rule,
No, I believe acre was passed in the early 2000s.
so.
It was really, you know, and I will say this, though, in taking a look at it, the timbering aspect of it is sort of just a sideline. What this was really passed about was the use of fertilizers and farming techniques and things of that nature. And again, that's something that in a community like Monroeville, we really don't come into contact with very much. But unfortunately, one of the agricultural activities that is defined in there is taking timber.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to timber, the Acre Act covers it, and it essentially preempts any regulations that we have that might be more strict than those regulations.
Okay. Thanks.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave the floor open for any